So I watched the new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Venom 2.0.
Like a bird in the wind.
Haha, April Fools! No, I actually watched Morbius, another desperate attempt from Sony to ride the coattails off the success of the MCU, or of what little is left. And yes, it is about as bad as you would expect from a superhero movie in the MCU era that isn't technically part of the MCU. But ever since No Way Home opened up that can of worms we call the multiverse, I guess it's not technically stealing if it's within the same pseudo-timeline. Then again, I guess Loki started the whole multiverse thing. But I don't want to compliment Loki, since it sucks and decided to sin against God. No, wait, I wasn't trying to compliment Loki with the multiverse thing. Yeah, Loki really sucks. But I digress. As it stands, Sony has proven time and time again that they are incapable at making a good or even decent superhero movie without someone else involved. I can't even say Morbius is that far off from the other terrible Sony movies in terms of quality. It's just more of the same, except more boring and the Joker Man is at the forefront.
We live in a society.
But rest assured, dear viewer, it is still very bad. And I plan to talk about the things I bothered to remember for this video that made Morbius fall so flat on its face. Let's begin. So much like Chaos Walking and the New Mutants before it, Morbius is a classic case of a movie being pushed back from its initial release date because the studio was so embarrassed by it. They might tell you it's because of COVID or creative decision making or what have you, but I'm quite comfortable believing it's because the movie is so terrible that even the studios drag their feet in trying to release it. Yes, even Hollywood producers have some semblance of dignity, even if it's minuscule, but in any case, this movie was in limbo for quite some time. But they eventually decided to bite the bullet and just let this abortion loose into the wild, and no amount of Discord servers was going to change the fact that this movie was dead on arrival. Get it? 'Cause it's about a vampire and they're technically dead. No, but really, this movie starts and you can already tell the kind of quality we're in for. So it starts off with Jared Leto in front of a bat cave in Cuba. Remember that scene from the trailer and how confusing it was from what little it showed? Well, that's basically the whole scene in this movie. Jared Leto slices the palm of his hand, he sticks it out through this harp thing, the bats scurry over to drink his blood or eat him or... Actually, you know what? It's never explained why he's doing this. From the look of the trailers, you'd think this is where he gets his bat powers, like this is the initial incident that kicks off the plot. But nope, it's smack dab in the beginning of the movie with no build-up and no payoff. Because after he gets swarmed by bats, it just cuts to black and then fades to 25 years earlier in Greece when he was a child. We're not even 5 minutes in and the movie has already shat the bed. So first off, the title drops before any scene is shown, which I commend the film on, seeing as movies barely drop their titles at the beginning anymore. So 1 point for Morbius, I guess. But with the way the opening scene is edited, you'd think it would have him getting swarmed by bats, then when it cuts to black, it would then drop the title of the movie, and then cut to 25 years earlier. I don't know, I'm no Hollywood director, but that seems like a pretty basic way of setting the story up, and then dropping your title in a way that makes sense and gets your audience intrigued. I can't say this is the worst aspect of the movie, but it is worth noting since it shows just how little the filmmakers care. So as I said, it cuts to 25 years earlier in Greece, where little Morbius is a crippled child living with some blood disease that's never really explained well. Why is he in Greece and not have a Greek accent? I guess this is a special hospital that deals with this very rare disease. Again, never explained. We're then introduced to Milo, or Louis, or Lucius? Luis? Or whatever. Yeah, the movie establishes that he has a name different from what he ends up being called, which is confusing and unnecessary. So it fits for this movie, I guess. Anyway, Milo faints because the machinery he's hooked up to stops working, and so Morbius calls for the nurse, but nobody comes. Apparently this is also the worst hospital in the world? Could they not afford nurses for this scene? I mean, the only doctor we see working at this place is Jared Harris, and that's it. Is this a case of the hospital being understaffed, or the movie not giving a shit enough to hire more extras to play nurses? I think it's the second thing. So anyway, Morbius has to save the day by putting a spring from a pen into where the batteries go, and that fixes everything because then Milo is all better. I'm sorry, is that how it works? Can I just take out the spring from my pen and put it into something with batteries and it instantly works? How did Morbius know to do that and that it would work? Clearly this isn't the first time he's done this, but I guess this is the first time Dr. Jared Harris has noticed him doing it. Because then he's like, oh, hey, we're gonna send you to a smart school in New York because all the smart schools are in America, apparently. And you're really smart and cool, and one day you'll grow up to be Jared Leto. Then it cuts to Milo reading a note from Morbius telling him to take care of himself while he's gone, so I guess he already left. Wow, what a friendship these two well-developed characters made. Then the letter gets blown out the window and some bullies catch it, and Milo tries to get it back, and they start pushing and teasing him. Then he smacks one of the bullies with his crutches and knocks him out completely, and he gets the living shit kicked out of him. Then Dr. Jared Harris comes back with groceries and is like, hey, you crazy kids, break it up. Maybe you shouldn't have left him unattended? Where are the nurses? Then it randomly cuts back to Morbius and Dr. Jared Harris's conversation, and Morbius asks what's going to happen to Milo, even though the previous scene kinda already explained that. This movie's editing is laughable and kinda makes the already tedious experience worse. Then with no hint of irony, Dr. Harris says that he'll be responsible for him, even though, again, the previous scene just showed he's full of shit. Am I supposed to laugh at this or take it seriously? Because I'm experiencing neither. Then it cuts to the present day, and Morbius is getting a Nobel Prize for creating artificial blood that is blue. Then it cuts to him at work as a doctor taking care of a precious child of color, and they talk about how he didn't accept the Nobel Prize. Wait, what? That's not what the previous scene showed. It just showed Morbius walking up to the stage, and then it cuts immediately to him taking care of this random child. Why didn't you show him not accepting the award? It probably would have made for a funny scene that would establish this guy as kind of a rebel. Hell, if you really wanted to cut to him working with the child instead, you could have pulled a Tony Stark and not have him show up to the ceremony anyway. No, they just talk about it, and he says he didn't accept it because he's not satisfied with his work yet, even though he's literally created fake blood that has literally saved the world. Wow, what a humble guy. He's so cool and epic. I love this guy because he's so selfless and nice, and I just want to kiss him on the mouth. Then we're introduced to the woman character, Dr. Woman, and she confronts Morbius about how he keeps bats in his laboratory for his unethical experiments. But rather than calling the cops or reporting him to any authorities, she just confronts him and is so nonchalant about it. She's saying what he's doing is kind of illegal, but she's treating it like she found his porn history. Where's the urgency, movie? Why should I care if the characters don't care? Anyway, then he's like, I'm just trying to find a cure for my blood-itis. Then he finds it after testing on a mouse. Wow, how convenient that this subplot was introduced and then wrapped up all without having to leave a single room. That's such efficient writing. Anyway, now he has to test this cure on himself, but again, since it's super illegal, he has to do it on international waters. So he decides to do that instead of doing something logical, and Dr. Woman comes along for some reason. I guess she doesn't care about ethics anymore or whatever, because she's super cool about going into international waters to try super illegal experiments. Why did you have her confront him about the issue then? Whatever, now it's time to test this on myself, and I hope I don't die. Oops, I became a vampire! Yeah, I'm not kidding when I say the initial incident where he becomes a vampire is so unspecial that I was genuinely confused. First off, I was still thinking that the opening was where he gets his powers, but that scene literally never plays into the story, so obviously, with that in mind, the scene still felt rushed. But even without the opening confusing me, him turning into a vampire genuinely feels like it comes out of nowhere. He's just super evil now and wants to suck people's blood and fight them in cool CGI fights that no one can fucking see properly. Oh yeah, don't worry, the action scenes fucking suck. The camera is so shaky and the lighting is so dark and you can't even tell what's going on 90% of the time. You'd kinda hope a movie hellbent on wowing a Marvel audience would have cool action scenes, but nope, I guess that's asking too much. Like damn, Venom had better action than this. Anyway, then Morbius regains consciousness after killing all the mercenaries and knocking out Dr. Woman, but don't worry, she's still alive. Then he calls for help on the ship's radio after erasing all the camera footage showing that he's an evil vampire. Then he abandons ship. So now Morbius is on the run and he decides to go back to his lab? This is when things start to get a lot more confusing. Well, more confusing than usual. So Morbius deleted all this footage to cover up the fact that he killed people, and he jumped ship so he didn't have to explain anything, even though that looks really fucking sus. But then he just decides to go back to his lab. The lab that is very public and anyone can apparently find him in. He still goes to it even after his coworker has been found unconscious on an abandoned ship with 8 corpses. So does he want to stay hidden or not? Why is this Nobel Prize winning doctor such a huge dumbass? Anyway, he goes back to his lab and discovers all his powers a la Spider-Man montage. He discovers all the abilities a vampire bat has. Echolocation, craving blood, flying, sometimes. The physicality of an Olympic athlete. You know, all those athletic vampire bats, always known for straight up ballin'. He also realizes that synthetic blood can't satisfy his bloodlust for very long. Why? Because then there'd be no conflict. Duh. Apparently synthetic blood can save the world better than penicillin can, but it can't cure Morbius or Milo of their stupid blood disease or subside his bloodlust as a vampire. Is this a Nobel Prize winning discovery or complete bullshit? Which is it, movie? It can't be both. Anyway, we also have a subplot where Tyrese and Asterios Kokkinos are trying to investigate what's going on with Morbius because they suspect that it's him who killed all those guys on the ship. And they're 100% correct. Also, Milo really wants the cure that Morbius gave himself, but Morbius won't give it to him because he doesn't want Milo to become evil like him. This is literally just the same subplot from Amazing Spider-Man 2. But at least here, there's a good reason why Morbius is denying Milo. Like, Morbius knows he can't really control it and doesn't want Milo to take on that burden either. Wow, he's literally so selfless. Please fuck me in the ass, Daddy Morbius. So yeah, this movie has one good thing over Amazing Spider-Man 2. Unfortunately, it's not as funny, so what's the fucking point?
It's my birthday. Now it's time for me to light my candles.
Then one of the nurses who works for Morbius gets killed and Tyrese and Asterios suspect Morbius, so they confront him and he runs away, but then he gets caught because I guess the movie got bored of the chase scene 30 seconds into it. Now Morbius is in jail, and I was thinking this is where they were going to show Michael Keaton's character. Yeah, remember the trailer showing Adrian from Spider-Man Homecoming 2 years ago, hinting at the Spider-Man multiverse shenanigans? And then this movie got pushed back so then Venom 2 and No Way Home could get all the glory in starting it instead. You snooze, you lose, Morbius. Anyway, no, this is not the scene. Michael Keaton being in the movie is introduced in an even dumber way. I'll get to it later. So Morbius is in jail, and Tyrese tries to get to the bottom of this whole crazy, boring mystery. They also say they don't care that he murdered all those mercenaries on the boat. They're just gonna punish him for that murder of the one nurse. This is to set up the epic twist that's about to happen. That's it. I mean, come on, this interrogation scene is so cool. It's just like The Dark Knight, except bad. Then Milo visits Morbius in jail to tell him he's not a bad guy even if he did murder the nurse. Then he pretty much reveals that he did it and Morbius isn't actually a conflicted character. What? Milo did it? Oh, wow, that's such a twist, I guess. Yeah, remember how the tagline for this movie was, "The line between hero and villain will be broken," or some stupid shit like that? Like the movie was finally gonna show us a true anti-hero as a main character? Well, good news! Much like Deadpool and Venom before it, this movie also pussies out on trying to make their main character complex and instead just makes up excuses as to how they're not actually evil. They're just edgy as fuck. Guys, it's okay, the main character isn't some crazy killer. He just brutally murdered a bunch of evil bad guys, so it's okay. He's actually a good guy. It's his close friend who got beat up by a bunch of terrible child actors at the beginning who's the truly evil one. No need to think about the ramifications of rooting for a complex character, dear general audience member. We don't want you to have to feel bad in any way. Who would want to watch something where the main character is problematic in any way? That's just not marketable. Anyway, so yeah, Milo took the vampire juice and can control his vampire rage better than Morbius can. Why? Because conflict, I guess. I don't fucking know. Also, I want to point out that Milo is apparently very rich. It's established several times that he's the major benefactor for Morbius's research and tells Morbius that he can make the damning evidence against him go away. But like, what exactly does Milo do to become so filthy rich? It's never established what he does for a living or where he got all the money from. Not once. He's just super rich and cool and epic, and shut up, don't think about it. Anyway, then Morbius and Milo have an epic vampire fight in the subway, and guess what? The action sucks. I should mention that every time Morbius and Milo go vampire mode, the background always goes blurry and cloudy. Like that's supposed to show they see the world differently when they're full-on vampires. It's never really explained why that is. At first I thought it was like Zack Snyder's Flash, where every time he's fast, the world around him is covered in blue lightning. So when Morbius is going super fast, the world around him is super fuzzy. But it's like this even when he's moving at normal speed, so I don't understand it. It's also weird to look at and gave me a headache, so thanks for that, Morbius. Anyway, then Morbius escapes from Milo, and Milo doesn't chase after him. Then Morbius meets with Dr. Woman on the bus. She notices the newspaper that says her boss is wanted for murder, even though this has been a major story for a while now. How did she not notice? Also quite convenient that she reads the headline and immediately runs into him on the exact bus that he was on. Was he waiting for her on that bus, hoping she would catch that exact one? Was he following her like Agent Asterios? Either way, very creepy. So then they meet at a coffee shop. Out in public, with no way of covering up his face, even though it's been established that he's wanted for murder and any one of these people could call the cops on him. Even if they've never heard of this doctor who created synthetic blood and got a Nobel Prize for it, these people should have at least seen on the news that he's wanted for murder. Whatever, that's on me for wanting a movie to be consistent and good. Silly me. Then Morbius echolocation hears a couple of criminals trying to force a cashier to take counterfeit money that they whipped up in their lab. So Morbius decides to follow them. At first I thought it was because he wanted to prove that he's a good guy and beat up a bunch of criminals. But nope, he just wanted the lab that these guys were working at. Also, he tells Dr. Woman to get a bunch of his equipment from his lab to bring to here so he can find a cure for his vampirism. Oh, so now he can't go back to his lab. Didn't stop him before, but whatever. Also, this is where that scene of him saying I am Venom came from. Remember in the trailer?
Who the hell are you, man? I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius.
Oh, that's really cringe.
Yes, at your service.
Except here he just says, I am Venom, and then tells them to leave, which makes even less sense than what the scene in the trailer showed. I guess the filmmakers thought if he had said, I'm Dr. Michael Morbius at your service, that would expose him, and then these criminals would rat him out to the police where he's staying, and also he's not at their service, so I guess it wouldn't make any sense. But him just saying, I am Venom still makes zero sense within this scene. At least with the little JK lol at the end, it shows that he was messing around with those guys, and it would have been funny. It wouldn't have made any sense still, but I don't know. Is it too much to ask for some fun in a superhero movie? Maybe I'm an idiot for wanting a fun comic book movie to be fun. Shame on me, I guess. Anyway, then Dr. Woman goes to Morbius's lab, which is unguarded, and only has like 2 pieces of police tape blocking the doorway. So really, Morbius could have gone to his lab with no repercussions. These are somehow the best and worst FBI agents I've ever seen in a movie ever. Then Milo is there at Morbius's lab asking Dr. Woman where Morbius is. Oh, this fucking movie, man. Even though Milo has an echolocation the same as Morbius, why don't you just use that to find him? Why are you asking the regular human woman where your vampire friend is at when you yourself have the exact same vampire powers? Why is this movie so broken? Anyway, Dr. Woman says she doesn't know, obviously lying, and Milo just walks away believing her. Absolutely no tension whatsoever. Exceptional filmmaking at play here. Anyway, Dr. Woman grabs a couple of papers from Morbius's lab, because apparently that's all he needs to find a cure for his vampirism. And lo and behold, he finds one. Wow, that was quick. Oh, and also Tyrese and Asterios find footage of Milo attacking some Wall Street jerks as a vampire, and then they don't think Morbius is a killer anymore. So then Dr. Jared Harris, yeah, remember him, confronts Milo about being a vampire and how it's bad and how he didn't raise him to be a killer or whatever. Which is pretty funny because the only scene we saw of Dr. Jared Harris taking care of Milo was when he got beat up by those bullies while Dr. Jared Harris was out buying groceries. Should have hired more nurses, asshole. Then Morbius finds Dr. Harris dying on the ground after Milo sliced him in the stomach. The movie at first tries to play this scene out as very sad, but Morbius and Dr. Harris have had no meaningful scenes leading up to this, so then the movie just gives up and kills him off immediately. quickly. Then Morbius hears Milo attacking Dr. Woman and he rushes to save her, but he's also too late to that. Apparently vampire bats aren't very fast when they need to be. Anyway, so Dr. Woman dies and Morbius is like, well, might as well suck her blood now. Then he confronts Milo for the epic climactic showdown. It's shot the exact way as all the other action scenes. It's unfocused and clumsy and you can't make out a damn thing even in slow-mo. Then Morbius uses the vampire cure on Milo and Milo dies. Oh no, R.I.P. Then Morbius flies away with his swarm of bats because that's a power he has now. Also, Dr. Woman is a vampire now. Just cuz. And Morbius doesn't feel conflicted about being a vampire because I have no fucking clue. Then the movie stops for the credits. Yeah, I say stop because it doesn't end. Because movies refuse to just end now. They just stop, play a couple of credits, and then continue the movie and call that a mid or a post-credit scene. There's no reason to put credits between them. You could honestly play these scenes as falling action after the climax and nothing would be out of the ordinary. Movies just like putting them at the end to keep the audience in their seats. Anyway, so yeah, there's two mid-credit scenes. One is of Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes being transported to Morbius' universe. He just appears in a jail cell and goes, well, I hope the food is better in this universe. Because apparently he already knows he's in a different timeline than the MCU. How did he know that? Also, then it starts playing news footage of this being breaking news. Like, apparently everyone just believes that he's from a different universe, and since he's from a different world, that means he doesn't belong in jail. You know, this would honestly make for a very interesting movie. I want to see a movie about how Michael Keaton's Vulture takes living in a different universe, so of course the most interesting part about this movie had nothing to do with Morbius. Then the second scene involves Vulture confronting Morbius and telling him he's in this universe because of Spider-Man. How did he know that? Also, I love how Vulture never takes off his mask to show just how obvious it is that Michael Keaton just recorded his lines and they make a CGI model of the Vulture so then he didn't have to actually be there to shoot the scene. Also, he asks Morbius if he wants to form a Sinister Six team and Morbius is interested, even though he's never met Spider-Man and has no reason to hate him. I'm sorry, Sony, I know you really want to make a Sinister Six movie, but just because you tease it at the end of your shitty movie doesn't mean people will be excited for it. Then the movie ends. I didn't stay for any post-credit scene, and quite frankly, I don't really care if there was one. Anyway, that was Morbius. 3 out of 10, the best thing ever. I freaking loved it. If there's one thing to take away from Morbius, it's that Sony hasn't learned a damn thing from Amazing Spider-Man 2. They are still pulling the same shit as that movie, and they are still falling flat on their face. And you know what? I hope they keep it up. If getting a Venom 2 and a Morbius means we sometimes get a No Way Home or Spider-Verse, then I'm perfectly okay with that. Besides, despite how broken this movie is, Morbius honestly isn't even that much worse than the usual schlock that's been dribbling out of Hollywood these past couple of years. But make no mistake, it's still bad. I'm sure a lot of you will say that Morbius is actually super cool in the comics or some Spider-Man show or whatever. I don't actually care. All I can judge is whether this movie was good or not. And well, one thing's for sure. Morbius is no Little Italy starring Hayden Christensen and Emma Roberts. It's not even close.